Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, I explained to Megan, a first-time shooter gripping the 9mm Glock with visible tension. Remember, it's an extension of your arm. Breathe, aim, squeeze. Don't pull. The morning sun filtered through the high windows of Liberty Firearms Training Center, casting long rectangles of light across the indoor range. Tuesday mornings were typically slow, perfect for one-on-one instruction with nervous beginners. The familiar smell of gunpowder and solvent hung in the air, a scent I'd grown to associate with focus and precision over my 15 years as an instructor. Megan nodded, her posture improving as she aligned herself with the target. Like this? Much better. Now remember what we practiced: sight alignment, controlled breathing. I stepped back, giving her space. Whenever you're ready. She fired, the report echoing through the range despite our ear protection. Her shot landed in the outer ring of the target. Not perfect, but progress from her earlier attempts that had missed the silhouette entirely. Good, you're getting there. I checked my watch, 9:17 a.m. Let's try 5 more rounds, focusing on consistency. As Megan emptied her magazine, I glanced toward the other occupied lane where Dominic was working with a Remington 700 bolt action. He'd been coming to the range for about 3 months, gradually improving his long-distance accuracy. His form needed work, but his dedication was obvious. "Dominic," I called over after ensuring Megan had cleared her weapon. "Your breathing's throwing off your aim. You're anticipating the recoil. Try to squeeze between heartbeats." He nodded, adjusting his stance. "Got it, Vince." I'd just moved to help him when my phone vibrated in my pocket. Unusual. I kept it on silent during sessions. Checking it, I saw 3 missed calls from Ray, my assistant manager who wasn't scheduled until the afternoon. A text message followed immediately. "Need to talk now. Something's happening downtown." Before I could respond, the heavy security door at the reception area buzzed. Through the reinforced glass partition, I recognized Frank Dawson's broad shoulders and military posture. My closest friend since our Army days. Frank had never shown up unannounced during a workday. Behind him stood his wife, Eliza, and their teenage son, Connor. "Take a 15-minute break," I told my students, securing Megan's pistol before heading to reception. Frank's face told me everything I needed to know before he spoke. The tight jaw, the watchful eyes continuously scanning the surroundings. I'd seen that expression in Fallujah when our unit was surrounded. "Vince," he said, voice deliberately steady. "We need to talk privately." I nodded, leading them to my office, a small room with tactical maps of the range on one wall and framed military commendations on another. "What's going on?" I asked once the door closed. "Something bad's happening downtown," Frank said, hand resting instinctively where his sidearm would be if he were still in uniform. "Riots, they're saying on the news. But it's different." Eliza clutched Connor's shoulder, her knuckles were white. "We were at the mall when it started. People attacking each other. Not normal fighting." She stopped, glancing at her son. "They were biting people," Connor finished, his voice cracking. "Like animals. And the ones who got bit, they started doing it too." I thought of Ray's calls and the unusual number of sirens I'd been hearing in the distance. "How bad?" "Bad," Frank confirmed. "Police scanner says they're overwhelmed, multiple precincts responding, hospitals reaching capacity." My mind shifted into the same tactical mode that had kept us alive overseas. The range was 3 miles outside city limits, built into the side of a hill with clear sight lines in all directions. 2 layers of security fencing, reinforced doors, independent generator, water filtration system. I'd designed it with defense in mind, a habit from military days that most people had found excessive, until now. "You're staying here," I said. Not a question. "Anyone else with you?" "Trevor and his wife are 10 minutes behind us. Maybe Doug too." I told them this was the safest place I could think of. Trevor had served with us, a combat medic who'd saved Frank's life when an IED nearly took his leg. Doug was a local mechanic who'd maintained all our vehicles since we'd returned to civilian life. All right. Decision made, I pulled up the range's security feeds on my computer monitor. Nothing unusual outside, yet. We need to inform the clients, close down the range, and secure the perimeter. The look that passed between us contained 15 years of mutual understanding. Whatever was happening, we'd face it with the same methodology that had kept us alive through 2 tours. Before we left the office, I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk, removing my personal Colt 1911 and holster. Force of habit made me check the magazine and chamber before securing it to my belt. When we returned to the range, Ray had arrived, breathing hard like he'd been running. His eyes were wide, his typically neat appearance disheveled. Jesus, Vince, have you seen what's happening? It's all over the scanner and... He noticed Frank and his family. You know. We're closing the range, I announced, my voice projecting with the authority that had once commanded a platoon. Megan. Dominic, there's a situation developing downtown. I recommend you stay here until we have more information. Dominic looked skeptical. What kind of situation? Ray answered before I could. People are going insane, attacking each other. I saw it on my way here. A bus crashed on Parkview Avenue. The passengers who walked away looked wrong. They were pursuing others. The police will handle it, Dominic said, though uncertainty edged his voice. I moved to the range control station, activating the PA system. Attention all personnel and clients. Liberty Firearms Training Center is initiating emergency lockdown procedures. This is not a drill. Please proceed to the main briefing room immediately. The half-dozen clients from the other sections of the facility began filtering in, expressions confused or concerned. I recognized most of them, regular patrons, hobbyists, law enforcement officers on their day off. Listen up, I began once everyone had gathered. There's a situation developing downtown. Civil unrest, potentially dangerous. For your safety, I'm offering the option to remain here until we have more information. This facility is secure, with supplies and safety measures in place. Officer Brent Wilson, who often practiced at the range on his days off, stepped forward. I just got a call to report in, all leaves canceled. Whatever's happening, they're mobilizing everyone. You should go, I told him. But for civilians without pressing obligations, I recommend staying. Most nodded in agreement. The recent years had seen enough unexpected crises that, better safe than sorry, had become conventional wisdom rather than paranoia. As we organized sleeping arrangements and took inventory of supplies, Frank and I stepped outside to secure the perimeter. The afternoon sun illuminated the surrounding hills, peaceful and unchanged. But the increasing wail of distant sirens and the dark smoke rising from downtown created a surreal contrast. You think it's what Connor described? Some kind of infection? I asked, checking the padlocks on the outer gate. Frank's expression was grim. I've seen civil unrest. This is different. Eliza's brother called from the hospital before we lost contact. Said patients were showing extreme aggression, biting staff, high fevers, disorientation, then violent behavior. They had to barricade the emergency room. We moved methodically around the compound, securing access points, checking fence integrity. The tactical routine was familiar, comforting even, in its predictability, until we reached the eastern fence line. Vince, Frank said quietly, pointing toward the road. A lone figure stumbled along the asphalt, moving with an awkward, disjointed gait. Even from 200 yards, something about their movements raised every combat-honed instinct in my body. Their heads swiveled unnaturally as if working on damaged gears. Their arms hung strangely, not swinging naturally with their stride. We watched in silence as the figure suddenly changed direction, lurching toward our perimeter with terrible focus, like a predator that had caught a scent. Get inside, I said, drawing my sidearm. Alert the others. As Frank moved quickly back to the main building, I raised my binoculars. What I saw through them made my stomach twist. A man in the tattered remains of a postal uniform, his throat a ragged mess of torn flesh, eyes clouded white but somehow still fixing on me with primal hunger. That was the moment I knew. Whatever was coming for us wasn't just a riot or civil unrest. It was something far worse. And it was only the beginning. The postal worker wasn't alone for long. Within 20 minutes, 3 more figures appeared on the road, each moving with that same broken, predatory gait. I'd returned inside to organize our defenses, but monitored them through the security cameras we'd installed around the perimeter. "They're definitely drawn to movement and sound," Ray observed, watching the monitors with me. "That first one changed direction when it spotted you." Frank nodded grimly. "What we're seeing matches everything in those pandemic horror movies, doesn't it? The ones everyone always dismissed as unrealistic." I didn't want to say the word out loud, it felt absurd, like breaking some unspoken rule of reality. But as I watched a 5th infected join the small group congregating at our outer fence, I couldn't deny the growing evidence. "We need to operate under worst-case assumptions," I said finally. "If this is what it appears to be, we need to prepare accordingly." A buzz from the security system announced new arrivals at the main gate. The cameras showed Trevor's pickup truck, his wife Julia visibly agitated in the passenger seat. Behind them was a sedan I didn't recognize. "Frank, come with me," I said, checking my sidearm. "Ray, maintain watch and don't open for anyone else without direct confirmation from me." We hurried to the gate, keeping our movements quick but controlled. The growing cluster of infected at the eastern fence hadn't noticed the new arrivals yet, but that wouldn't last. Trevor exited his vehicle the moment we appeared, his medical bag clutched in one hand. "You wouldn't believe what we've seen," he said, voice steady but eyes wide. "Downtown's completely overrun. Military checkpoints on the main highways are already failing." "Who's in the other car?" I asked, eyeing the sedan. "Bree's brother and his daughter," Julia explained, referring to Doug's wife. "They were at their house when it started. Doug went to get them while we came straight here." I recognized Bree's brother now, Austin Reynolds, a civil engineer I'd met at their wedding. The girl beside him couldn't have been more than 14, her face streaked with dried tears. "Let's get inside," I urged, noting how the infected at the eastern fence had begun to shamble toward the sound of our voices. "Those things are attracted to noise." We moved efficiently, bringing the vehicles inside the compound before securing the gate. Once inside, Trevor immediately sought out Eliza and Connor, checking them for signs of trauma or injury, a habit from his medical days. "Anyone hurt? Any contact with infected?" he asked clinically. "We're fine," Frank assured him. "Got out before it spread to our neighborhood." Austin remained silent, clutching his daughter Zoe's shoulder protectively. Something about his posture struck me as off, the way he angled his body away when Trevor approached them. "What about you two?" Trevor asked, turning his attention to them. "Either of you injured?" "We're fine," Austin said quickly, "just shaken up." Zoe looked at her father, then down at the floor. The dynamic triggered the same instinct that had kept me alive in combat, the sense that something wasn't being said. Inside, our numbers had grown to 17. The original clients, Frank's family, my staff, and now the new arrivals. I gathered everyone in the briefing room, a space normally used for firearm safety courses, now serving as our command center. "Here's what we know," I began. "Something is causing people to become violent, aggressive, and non-responsive to normal stimuli. The affected individuals appear to attack unaffected people, primarily by biting. Those who are bitten subsequently turn violent themselves." "Zombies," Connor said quietly. "They're like zombies." The word hung in the air, both ridiculous and terrifyingly apt. "Whatever we call them," I continued, "they're dangerous and increasing in number. This facility is defensible. We have supplies, weapons, and clear sight lines. Our priority is to maintain security while we gather more information." Officer Wilson, who had decided to stay after failing to reach his precinct, raised his hand. "Emergency broadcasts are saying to shelter in place. All first responders are overwhelmed. National Guard is being deployed, but they're prioritizing critical infrastructure. Which means we're on our own for now," I concluded. "We need to establish watches, inventory supplies, and assign responsibilities. This isn't a democracy, but I want everyone's skills utilized. If you have relevant experience or knowledge, speak up now. Trevor raised his hand. I've got medical training and a decent supply kit. I can set up a treatment area. Dominic, the rifle enthusiast, spoke next. I'm a telecommunications engineer. I might be able to boost our radio reception. Maybe rig something to monitor emergency broadcasts. Others followed, each offering what skills they could. We organized quickly, with the efficiency of people recognizing the gravity of their situation. As the meeting dispersed, I noticed Austin slip away toward the restrooms, moving stiffly. The concern that had been nagging me intensified. I followed at a discreet distance, signaling Frank to continue coordinating the others. Outside the men's room, I heard labored breathing and a muffled groan. I pushed the door open slowly, one hand resting on my holstered pistol. Austin stood at the sink, his shirt pulled up, examining a wound on his side. An unmistakable bite mark. The flesh around it already inflamed and darkening. Our eyes met in the mirror. When? I asked quietly, letting the door close behind me. Getting Zoe from school, he said, voice barely above a whisper. One of her teachers. I fought it off, but not before. He trailed off, lowering his shirt. I thought I could make it here, find help. I maintained my distance, mind racing through options. Trevor should look at that. No, Austin's voice hardened. You've seen what happens. We both know what this means. The rational part of my mind knew he was right. Every case we'd heard about followed the same progression. Bite, fever, aggression, transformation. But looking at his face, seeing the fear mixed with resignation, I couldn't just execute a man who was still himself. How long ago? I asked. 2 hours, maybe less, he whispered. I can feel it, Vince. Getting hotter. Thoughts getting strange. I made a decision. Ada. We have a storage room separate from the main building, secure but isolated. We'll tell the others you're resting there. Trevor can examine you, see if there's anything to be done. And Zoe? His eyes filled with tears. She can't see me like this. Promise me you'll keep her safe. I promise, I said, the weight of those words settling heavily. Now come with me before anyone else notices. I led Austin through a side corridor to the auxiliary building, a concrete structure originally designed for storing larger caliber ammunition and volatile supplies. It had a reinforced door, a small window, and crucially, no direct access to the main facility. Wait here, I instructed, helping him sit on an ammunition crate. I'll get Trevor. I found the medic organizing his supplies. Taking him aside, I explained the situation in low tones. His expression grew grave. There's nothing in my kit for this. Vince, he said, but I should examine him, document the progression. Might help us understand what we're dealing with. When we returned, Austin's condition had visibly deteriorated. Sweat soaked his shirt, and his eyes had developed a glassy, unfocused quality. His breathing came in irregular gasps. How's Zoe? He managed between breaths. With Julia and Eliza, I assured him. They're keeping her distracted. Trevor approached cautiously, medical kit in hand. I need to check your vitals, Austin. Is that okay? Austin nodded weakly. As Trevor worked, I secured the room, checking the window, reinforcing the door. The small space could become a death trap quickly if Austin turned. Pulses racing, temperature approximately 104 degrees Celsius, Trevor reported clinically. Pupils dilated and struggling to respond to light. Wound site shows signs of advanced infection. Tissue necrosis, discoloration extending from the bite radius. Austin gripped Trevor's wrist suddenly. Tell her. I tried to get her somewhere safe. Tell her I love her. You can tell her yourself when, Trevor began. But Austin cut him off. No lies, not now. His focus seemed to sharpen momentarily. You need to contain me. Before I change. While I'm still me. I exchanged glances with Trevor. The practical, tactical part of my mind agreed. The human part rebelled against the thought. We'll restrain you, I said finally. Monitor your condition. Maybe it won't progress the same way for everyone. Austin gave a weak laugh that turned into a cough. Always the optimist, Vince. Using nylon zip ties from the supply closet, we secured Austin to a sturdy metal shelving unit. The indignity of it bothered me, but the alternative was worse. "What do we tell the others?" Trevor asked as we prepared to leave. "That Austin's showing signs of dehydration and needs rest," I decided. "No need to panic everyone yet. Frank should know. And Officer Wilson. The rest we tell when necessary." As we reached the door, Austin's entire body suddenly convulsed. His back arched unnaturally, a guttural sound escaping his throat. "It's happening," Trevor said, stepping back, much faster than the report suggested. Austin's eyes rolled back, then forward again, but they weren't his eyes anymore. The warm brown had been consumed by a milky film with blood vessels visibly darkening around the iris. His breathing stopped, then restarted with a hollow, rattling quality. "Vince," Trevor whispered, "we're out of time." Austin lunged against his restraints, the zip ties cutting into his wrists as he snarled, a sound no human throat should make. His jaw snapped repeatedly, teeth clacking together as he strained toward us. "The gun cabinet," I said quietly. "Combination is Zoe's birthday. I saw it on his emergency contact form, E07-2209. Trevor nodded grimly. "I'll get it. You, stay here." "No, we both go." I looked at what had been Austin one last time. "We can't help him now." We secured the door behind us, the sound of inhuman growls following us down the corridor. Trevor returned minutes later with a pistol. What needed to be done was done quickly, mercifully. We wrapped the body and locked the storage room, agreeing to deal with it properly later. When we returned to the main building, a new problem awaited. The infected outside our perimeter had grown to nearly 30, their collective weight beginning to strain the outer fence. Their movements became more frenzied, more determined as their numbers increased. "They're getting more aggressive," Frank observed, watching through binoculars. I studied their behavior, the tactical part of my mind analyzing patterns. They're operating on basic instincts, drawn to movement, sound, potential prey. Nothing complex about it. Or maybe they sense fresh meat, Ray suggested grimly. Us. From our elevated position, we had a clear view of the city skyline 5 miles distant. What I saw confirmed our worst fears. Black smoke billowed from multiple locations: the hospital, the downtown district, the mall. Military helicopters circled above the city center, spotlights sweeping across darkened buildings. Occasionally, the staccato rhythm of automatic weapons fire carried on the wind. The distant thump of explosions punctuated the scene as what appeared to be National Guard units tried to establish control points on the main thoroughfares. Their efforts seemed futile. Even from this distance, we could see the control points being overwhelmed by dark masses of infected, flowing like a grotesque tide through the streets. "They're losing the city," Frank murmured, the military strategist in him recognizing a failing defense when he saw one. A tug on my sleeve pulled my attention away. Zoe stood there, her young face etched with worry beyond her years. "Where's my dad?" she asked. "Trevor said he was resting, but I checked the break room and he's not there." I crouched to her level, the weight of what we'd just done pressing down on me. Before I could formulate an answer, a commotion erupted outside, the sound of tearing metal as a section of the outer fence gave way under the persistent pressure of the infected. Through the window, I could see them pouring through the breach, their broken movements accelerating with predatory purpose. The first line of our defense had just fallen, and I still had to tell a child that her father was gone. The worlds within and without were collapsing simultaneously, and night hadn't even fallen on the first day. "Fall back to secondary perimeter," I shouted as the outer fence collapsed completely. The infected poured through the breach like a grotesque flood, their collective moans rising in volume as they sensed prey within reach. Our tactical position wasn't as compromised as it might appear. The range had been designed with layered security. The fallen outer fence was merely the first barrier. 50 yards of open ground separated it from our reinforced inner perimeter, a stretch I'd deliberately kept clear for exactly this scenario. In military terms, a kill zone. "Armed personnel to assigned positions," I commanded, switching to the tactical mindset that had served me in combat. Non-combatants to the inner safe room. Frank organized the defenders while Ray led the civilians, including Zoe, still asking questions about her father, to the reinforced classroom we'd designated as our fallback position. Range rules apply, I reminded everyone as they took positions along the inner wall. Sight picture, breathing control, shot placement, conserve ammunition. These things only go down with headshots. Our defensive line consisted of myself, Frank, Officer Wilson, Dominic, and 3 regular clients with hunting experience. 7 shooters against what had now grown to nearly 40 infected. Far from ideal odds, but we had position, cover, and training. Wait for my command, I instructed, watching the infected stumble across the open ground. Let them bunch up. The creatures moved with single-minded persistence, no sense of tactics or self-preservation. Their advantage was purely numerical. Shooters with rifles, select your targets, I said, raising my own AR-15. On my mark, fire. 7 rifles cracked in near unison. 7 infected dropped immediately, neat holes punched through their skulls. The sound of gunfire only excited the remaining horde, accelerating their shambling pace. Reload and continue, I ordered. Controlled pairs, don't rush. The methodical rhythm of gunfire continued, each shot dropping another infected. Dominic, who'd been an eager student hours earlier, showed remarkable focus, his marksmanship precise despite the pressure. They keep coming, Frank noted grimly, ejecting an empty magazine and slapping in a fresh one. More arriving from the road. He was right. For every infected we dropped, 2 more appeared at the breached fence. Our ammunition, while plentiful, wasn't infinite. Switch to alternating fire, I decided. Conserve rounds, focus on the closest threats. The infected had reached the midpoint of our kill zone when Eliza's voice crackled over the radio. Movement at the rear entrance. Multiple infected approaching from the access road. A classic flanking scenario, our attention fixed on the frontal assault while a second threat developed behind us. In combat, I'd have suspected deliberate tactics. Here it was merely bad luck. Frank, take Wilson and secure the rear, I ordered. Dominic, shift to the east corner. Watch for any trying to scale the walls. As Frank's team repositioned, I made a rapid tactical assessment. We needed to thin the horde more efficiently. Rifle fire alone wouldn't be sufficient. Ray, I called over the radio, bring up the shotguns from the armory, and the range claymores. Metal plates loaded with tannerite that would detonate when struck by a high-velocity round. Technically for long-range precision practice, but in this scenario they'd serve another purpose. Ray arrived moments later with 3 tactical shotguns and a crate of the tannerite targets. Where do you want them? Set 4 charges in a semicircle, 20 yards out, I instructed. We'll funnel them through, then detonate. While 2 defenders maintained suppressing fire, Ray and I quickly positioned the improvised explosives. The infected, drawn by our movement, began to concentrate in the exact corridor we'd created. Fall back to secondary positions, I ordered once the charges were set. Dominic, you're our best shot with a rifle. When I give the word, hit the left target. The chain reaction should handle the rest. We retreated to our reinforced positions as the infected shambled into our trap. Timing would be crucial. Too early, and we'd waste the opportunity. Too late, and they'd be too close to our walls. Now, I commanded when the mass reached the optimal position. Dominic's rifle cracked, the round striking the first tannerite charge with pinpoint accuracy. The explosion wasn't massive, but in the confined space of the kill zone, it was devastating. Shrapnel tore through the front ranks of infected, dropping a dozen instantly. The concussion triggered the remaining charges in sequence, creating a cascading wave of destruction. When the dust cleared, more than 20 infected lay motionless. The remainder, disorientated but undeterred, continued their advance. Shotgunners, take position, I ordered, grabbing one of the Benelli M4s Ray had brought. 5-yard spread, controlled fire. The shotguns presented a different tactical advantage. Less precision required, greater stopping power at close range. As the infected reached within 30 feet of our wall, we opened fire. Each blast removed entire parts of their heads, dropping them instantly. The combined defensive strategy was working, our superior position and firepower gradually whittling down their numbers. But the sounds of our defense were drawing more infected from the surrounding area. "We need to secure that breach," Frank called out, returning from the rear entrance. "Or this becomes an endurance test we can't win." He was right. Tactical doctrine emphasized controlling access points. With our outer fence compromised, we needed a new barrier. The range vehicles, I decided. We'll create a blockade. Using the range's pickup and SUV, we executed a rapid maneuver to seal the breach. Frank drove, while Ray and I provided covering fire. The vehicles wedged perfectly into the gap, creating a makeshift but effective barrier. As night fell, the immediate crisis subsided. The infected still prowled beyond our walls, but our defensive perimeter held. Inside, Trevor tended to minor injuries while Eliza and Julia organized our supplies. In the command center, I gathered the core group to assess our situation. "We've repelled the initial wave," I reported. "But there will be more. The city's lost, at least temporarily. Military response appears overwhelmed. We need to plan for extended isolation." "What about rescue?" someone asked. Frank shook his head. "Based on what we're seeing, conventional assistance isn't coming soon. We're on our own." Zoe had eventually been told about her father. Not the details, but enough to understand he wasn't coming back. She sat quietly beside Eliza, who had taken the girl under her protection. "So what's the plan?" Dominic asked, his earlier reluctance now replaced with grim determination. I spread out a map of the surrounding area. "We fortify, scavenge, and survive. This facility has advantages: defensible position, supply storage, weapons. But long-term, we need to expand our safe zone." "And the people out there?" Megan asked. "Other survivors?" "We bring them in if we can," I decided. "Train them, build our numbers." As the meeting continued, I stepped outside briefly, surveying our position under the rising moon. In the distance, fires still burned throughout the city. Military helicopters had ceased their flights. The world we'd known was fading away. But standing there, listening to the voices inside discussing patrol schedules and reinforcement plans, I felt something unexpected: purpose. In the army, I'd fought for abstract concepts like freedom and security. Now the mission was immediate and tangible. Protect these people, teach them to survive, build something sustainable from the ruins. Frank called from the observation post. 2 civilians approaching the main gate. 1 armed, 1 injured. They're being pursued. The night wasn't over yet, more decisions to make. More lives hanging in the balance. But as I moved to address this new situation, I glanced back at Zoe. She'd straightened her posture, wiping away tears, watching me with attentive eyes, learning, observing, adapting. Like everyone within these walls, she was becoming something new, a survivor, a student of this harsh new reality. Perhaps someday, a teacher herself. I climbed the stairs to the observation post, Dominic and Officer Wilson falling in behind me without being asked, a team forming through shared experience and necessity. Through the night vision scope, I could see the approaching survivors and the shambling forms pursuing them. "Covering fire," I ordered, raising my rifle. "Let's bring them in." Another rescue, more survivors to train, another small victory against the chaos. Returning inside, I found the group looking to me for direction. Former clients, friends, strangers, all now united by crisis. "Tomorrow we begin training everyone," I announced. "Firearms proficiency, tactical movement, security protocols. Every person here becomes not just a survivor, but a defender." "And then?" Trevor asked. "Then we grow stronger. Reach out to other survivor groups. Establish secure routes between safe zones." I pointed to the city on the map, and eventually, we take it back, block by block if necessary. The faces looking back at me showed fear, uncertainty, but also something vital: resolve. These weren't soldiers or preppers or tactical experts. They were ordinary people forced to adapt to extraordinary circumstances. But they were learning, surviving. Already, I could see the transformation beginning. Civilians becoming defenders through necessity and determination. The first 12 hours had been about immediate survival. The coming days would be about building something that could endure. As I outlined the next day's training regimen, I realized the shooting range had become something I never intended, not just a shelter or fortress, but a beginning. The first class of a new academy for the world that would emerge from the ashes of the old.